Welcome, everybody. This is a live, and we're also going to be doing a podcast. And I do have a special guest here. And so we're going to be talking about so much, and we're just hanging out here. This is the preamble before the recording of the podcast, if you will. And we're simply hanging out here with you. And Jennifer Lee is with me. Hi, Jennifer. So great to see you here.
So good to see you. Thanks for having me, Paul.
I'll be introducing you officially for the podcast in just a couple moments. So we'll just let people warm up and say hi. For all of you that are here, recognize that you can please share, please like, please follow. We are engaging with people all around the universe these days, across the country and beyond, as we've been expanding our universe back to where it was prior to COVID, which was throughout the Canada and Latin America and Europe, and expanding our reach every single day. So absolutely continue to share, continue to be a part of this community, because there's so much happening and so much going on. For all of you, we also have the chat live and available for our live streaming, and any comments that are here, we will be going back. You see this recording later on. You can come back and comment, and we will be engaging in the comments ongoing. We do see them, and we do recognize how great it is to have all of you here. And so as we are broadcasting, this is a slightly different time than we usually go live. So some people are still trying to figure out, all right, what are we doing and what's going on? I will share that, and there's a nice post here that I'm supposed to copy and put up in the chat here. And let's see if I can do this effectively and make this happen. And maybe, yes. So that worked. And there's a way so that we see your name in our chat as we're streaming through another service and one thing after another, and we're streaming to multiple different platforms at once. So that's the beginning. Jennifer, are you ready?
I'm ready.
We're going to start the podcast now, everyone. I'm going to put you in a different box. Let's see now if this works. Hey, look at that. And so I'm going to have you sit there for a moment, and then I'll bring you up as I finish introducing you. Does that make sense? All the people, am I doing this right for the people that are following and watching? Indeed. So we're going to get started. Ready? For our listening audience that is here live, we're going to take a 3-second pause of quiet to get our recording clear, because this will be edited for our official podcast later. So this is how it's done. Welcome, everyone. This is Paul Fink, and this is Mavericks Do It Different podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Absolutely, this is the place where we talk about how to do things differently, thinking differently, being differently, and doing things different to create different results. And isn't that what most of us want? So many people are in this space of the same old, and every day is the same as yesterday, and it's not necessarily a life that we love. How do we create the greatness in ourselves? Our fullest potential is by creating a different reality, and we do that by creating a different action, different thoughts, different feelings today to create that new environment tomorrow. And that's what our podcast is all about. So today I've got a special guest who personifies so much of that and has been in active journey over the last couple of years in creating a difference in the world, and for not just herself and her family, but also so many people around her, and expanding all around the country now, watching just the amazement as she goes down this journey. She is the founder of Entry Envy. It founded in October 2021, so just a short time ago. and in Omaha, Nebraska. And she helps people create welcoming entry into their homes, into their businesses, with simplicity and convenience that also identifies their home for their guests and deliveries and doing all that in a great way. And we'll be introducing some of that in just a moment in more detail. These are custom signs with modern address numbers, last names, monograms featuring a small even planter box there so you can have floral engagement on a monthly basis. And there's a subscription model to this that I want you all in business to be paying attention to. Her inspiration came from a divorce. Yes, a divorce where she fully remodeled her home with outdated, hard to read house numbers on her house. She wanted to change that into something that was functional and fun and just enjoyable to be around. Before founding Entry MV, she was the executive director of two medium-sized law firms in Omaha for over 18 years. Bachelor's degree in business with marketing major, has an executive MBA, contributing author of the book Wisdom Before Me. She also has two children, two teenage daughters, a dog, and a tortoise, of all things. Life purpose: to encourage young women to consider the trades as a noble profession, and she personifies so much of this. Please welcome to our podcast, Jennifer Lee. Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you here. We've engaged this whole time. You've been part of the Maverick universe. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's crazy in the startup world. Time. You talk a lot about time, and there are so many things that I'll say to my assistant. That thing we did a few weeks ago. And she'll be like, "You mean the thing we did 2 days ago?" I'll be like, "Yeah, that, right." So it's amazing to think about that our conversations began 2.5 years ago, or even perhaps more, and that this journey has been in full swing since then. And so it's a lot of fun. It's great to circle back on all of this. Thanks.
So does that feel like it was just yesterday, or does that feel like it was 100 years ago?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I don't know how to describe it any other way. Like, I cannot believe it's been 2.5 years since I came up with this idea. I can't believe it's been almost 4 years since I made a decision that dramatically changed the course of my life and leaving my marriage. And yet it doesn't seem like it is possible that it's already been this long.
Yeah, I find that I go through the same process of the journey, and I'm so engaged in the journey that I can't believe how much gets done in the process. And yet it also feels like, because I've created so much, that the person I used to be was, that had to have been decades ago. It couldn't have just been a couple years ago.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I was thinking about you the other night. When you work, and so many people say, "How have you done all of this in 2 years?" Right? You're only 2 years old. How have you created this? And the short answer is no, I don't sleep. Not a lot. And you and I both share those qualities. And the other night I was really tired, and I thought, one more thing. And Paul will always say that, just do one more thing. And that's how it gets to be 3 o'clock in the morning, far too often. I did one more thing, but it really is that consistency compounds. It is the action of just doing it one more time, It's unbelievable how much you can accomplish.
It's the time component, and people are really quick to say, "Oh, no, you need your sleep. Oh, no." And yet every highly successful person I know, they profess not needing the sleep because, and I've talked to a few people that are really in tune with who they are, their body, and they all say the same thing, that your passion for life ends up transcending everything else. And that's key. is that you're so passionate about what you're doing. And I know, Jennifer, you are with everything that's been created, that you're so passionate that it doesn't feel like you're sacrificing anything. It doesn't feel like you're doing without sleep. And it also, the next day just rolls into just more of what you want.
Yeah.
And with that, it's an amazing journey.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
So let's go back and just kind of recap some of the things that have happened over the last 2 years for everybody. So we actually got engaged. We engaged in conversation during COVID, and it was on a virtual, and we really weren't traveling yet. And I was doing virtual events, if you will. And you came on one of those events, and I don't even know how you ended up there. And you were on one of the events, and we scheduled time to talk. And if you, I don't know what was going through your mind during those periods of time, but talk about some of the early days.
Yeah, so I'm going to take kind of people back to real quick. So you mentioned I got divorced. I moved into a fixer-upper because it was during the middle of COVID, and trying to buy a house at the peak of the market during a financial situation that was challenging because of the divorce going on. Created not a lot of availability. Beggars can't be choosers, and I got a fixer-upper. So I move into this fixer-upper house August of 2020, and I knew it from day one, and I just started, room by room tackling it, and I had a lot of time to think. It was truly therapy I couldn't buy. I didn't realize it at the time. That's what I was doing, but it was a lot of hours at night with just a paintbrush in my hand, having just creative space. And that's where I've learned that I think the best, both in the late night hours and just doing that kind of work. I'm not good to just go sit and watch the grass grow. I try, but it doesn't happen very well for me. And so when I got into about halfway through the remodel, it was in around January of 2021. I was thinking about the hundreds of thousands of women that were out of work at that time because entertainment and hospitality and tourism were completely shut down. And I was also thinking about how easy it was that I was doing these things every night, how much I enjoyed it. And I was thinking about the tens of thousands of people that were remodeling their houses. And every single time you turned around, they were complaining they couldn't get an electrician or a plumber, or, the contractor wasn't showing up. And I thought, God, we have all of these people who are perfectly capable of working in the trades, but they've never been given permission, and they don't know where to start, and they don't know how. And we have all of these other people in this market that are willing to pay them. How do we put these two together? And I started walking down this path in my head, and then I actually started taking action to say, can I fix this? Because I personally was tired of trying, kind of running into the same obstacles over and over. You go figure out how to do something. Yes, you can do it on YouTube or whatever. You watch 50 different videos of 50 different guys who give 50 different sets of tools and methods of how to fix something. Then you got to figure out how to do it. God, there's got to be a better way to all of this. So, but at the end of sort of this cycle, and that was when we actually first connected, I couldn't figure out how to monetize what my sort of altruistic mission was to get the women in the trades and more younger people in the trades. It's a huge problem. There's 3 million jobs open in the trades within the next year. And we just don't have enough people because we have done an incredible job for the last 35 years of sending every single high school graduate to college, regardless of whether they have a plan, regardless of whether they have enough money to go. They don't know what they're going to do. They're going to go to college, right? And we're creating a really economic infrastructure crisis for our country, and we have to fix that. But digressing from that, I was managing a law firm full-time by day. I was remodeling my house at night. I was a single mom with 2 kids and no other outside financial resources. And I couldn't figure out how to monetize this mission, if you will. And so I shelved it because I wasn't in a position to be able to quit my job and do anything different. So I just put it on the shelf, and I thought, okay, we'll come back to that someday. But at least I know why I'm here. I knew with clarity my purpose on this planet is to solve this problem. It just wasn't at that time. And so I kept remodeling the house, and it was in April of 2021, 4 months later, that I went on this mission because now I came home and the inside of my house looked brand new. It looked beautiful. I was proud of it, but the outside looked old. It looked like a fixer-upper. And I'm like, oh, I'm out of time. I'm out of energy. I'm out of money. How do I add curb appeal without spending a lot? So I decided to paint the garage door, paint the front door, update the light fixture, and figure out how to move the house numbers that were above the garage door. You couldn't see them. They were old, they were small, they were crooked, to a different spot. So I started Googling modern house number signs. And when I stumbled upon one for inspiration, that had this little planter box on the front of it, I thought, well, I'm not going to pay anybody to make that. I got extra stuff out in the garage. I'll just go do it myself. So I did. Decided to paint it. I had to go to 3 or 4 different hardware stores to find the house numbers I wanted. Nobody had them in gold. I wanted gold, so I spray painted it. And now I got the sign, and it looks really cute. Now I've got this planter box on the front, and I'm like, well, what the hell am I going to put in this? And so I'm not planting anything. I don't have time to water flowers twice a day, and I live in Nebraska. We could only grow something 4 or 5 months out of the year. I'm like, this isn't going to work. So I take my sign to the local craft store, and it's right before Easter. I spent about 45 minutes trying to figure out what kind of fake stuff to put in here. I've got to buy 3 foam blocks, and I only needed 1 because that's how they were sold. I had to buy a whole bag of Spanish moss, and I only needed, a quarter of an ounce. I had to buy 12 tulips. I only needed 3, but so $37 later, an hour worth of time, I'm now at home. I have to find my wire cutters. I can never find my wire cutters. Don't ask me why, but I had to find the wire cutters. I got it. And I found this cute little robin's egg, and I needed to figure out a way to have him not blow away. So I found something to poke in this egg, and then I had to hot glue it. So moral of the story, I thought, holy crap, I thought watering this was going to be a lot of work. This was a pain in the rear, but it was the cutest thing ever. I mean, cutest thing ever. I had my little brown burlap bunny and a little egg and 3 tulips and Spanish moss, and it just looked adorable. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do this every month. Who ships this stuff? So I go back to Google and I start searching for faux floral subscription boxes, holiday and seasonal decor, artificial decor for your front porch. I mean, scouring Google, Pinterest, Etsy, and no one was shipping this stuff. No one. And I can't believe that. But it was like that God moment of where I remembered my professor from 1997 in my marketing class who said, if you're ever going to create a business, create a reoccurring revenue model. And he used the example at that time of the newspaper, right? That was the first subscription.
Right.
And I thought, And I thought, not everybody needs house numbers. Some people need last names and monograms. And what about the people who live in apartments or assisted living? Maybe they would like something for their door too. But the common denominator that I came up with was everything would have the same size planter box attached to it. And my business model was shipping monthly and seasonal faux floral holiday and decor. And so I did all my models. This was like for 48 hours. I built this entire multi-million-dollar business in my head. And I went then and sat down and looked at the spreadsheet because I knew I had to make the numbers work. So don't get too excited, Jen, right? So I started working through the numbers and I thought, no, this works. And then I thought, well, is anybody going to buy it besides me, right? So I think this is a good idea, but then you got to do some market testing. And so I went to a little craft show and I didn't have a company name. I didn't have a website. I was just there with my samples, and I collected 250 email addresses in 6 hours from women that said, as soon as you go live, please let me know. So now I had to figure out, I have, lots of formal education. I have an MBA. I've managed $10 million revenue plus businesses for 20 years, but I had no clue how to start a company. None. And I'm like, wow, okay, I need some help. And, I am a big believer in being a lifelong learner, continuing education, and working smarter, not harder. Find the shortcuts whenever you can. Maximize, right? Those are my Gallup strengths. Strategic, maximizer, arranger. So strategic, great. I want to start a company. Number 2, I need to maximize the ROI, and I need to get there as fast as I possibly can because this is not going to be an inexpensive or quick journey. And a ranger is like, what are all of the resources I need? Money, people, tools, energy to be able to accomplish those goals. And so I started going back. My executive MBA thesis was on executive coaching. And so I had interviewed 78 executive coaches from all around the world back in 2013 before I even knew what an executive coach was. And I started looking at that list and I thought, surely somebody on here knows how to start a business. And so I found a gal, and through her, she actually is the one who connected me to you. She was Amy Walker, is amazing and very systems process oriented sales. I love her. And I just needed systems at that point, one step in front of the other. And you and I had been on, you had done a very brief podcast. It wasn't a podcast. It was like you jumped on a Zoom. I heard you for about 10 or 15 minutes. I don't even know what I heard, but I thought I heard something and I thought, well, this guy's pretty good. I want to meet him too. And so I jumped on one of your other calls that you had on kind of a Thursday night. And I'm a lurker at that point. I'm sitting in the back and I'm kind of thinking that you're really too good to be true. I don't know if you really know what you're talking about, but everything you said, I heard, I listened, I believed, and I thought, I think I want to meet this guy. And so I started the idea of this company in April of 2021. I work, every single night until 2, 3, 4 in the morning after I managed a law firm all day long, after I got my kids taken care of for dinner, and I worked on the back end of Entry Envy, building this company. And I launched it officially October 1st of 2021. And I got 25 subscribers my first month, and it was amazing. And I knew every single one of them. So I still hadn't crossed the threshold yet of we have anybody outside of this buying, but we had 25. And November, now we added another 20 or so. And I didn't know those people. Now we were starting to get a little bit further outside of that. And you were hosting Maverick Success Live in Las Vegas. And I had a free hotel room and a free plane ticket with points. And you had a reasonable ticket price. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go spend 3 days working on myself, on the business, and get away from my 3 a.m. mornings with my computer and, coding and everything else I was doing. And just think about, where's this going? What am I doing here? And it was getting tricky at this point to keep managing the law firm all day long and run this business that was now live. Now I had people calling me and texting me during the middle of the afternoon asking questions about what sign to order. And I thought, this is getting a little hard. And when, I went and had that experience with you, it was the best thing that I did for myself and certainly what I needed at that time. And it made me think so much about where was I going with this. And at the end of the day, what you talk about to so many people, and I have shared, and man, all of the high achievers, we all know this. It's fear. Everyone has fear at every level of success, and that's what you have to push through to get what you want. It's not that you're not going to be scared, but it's be scared and do it anyway. And the quote of whoever said it, everything you want is on the other side of fear, is just, so true. And, so I was just terrified. Like, could I quit a 6-figure corporate income job and chase a dream? Because let me tell you, my 35, 40 subscribers that were paying $29 a month at that point for their artificial stuff was not going to pay the bills.
And I want to pause at that moment. I want to reflect on just a couple things that you said.
Yes.
One is that it always amazes me, and yet I know it for the fact, is that in your MBA, you are not taught how to start a business. And that always amazes me because, well, you're being taught all these great components about business. However, the cornerstone is getting one going. And no, you got to find someone else who already did that, and then you tap in. And there's so much, the rest of that story of what does it take to start a business? What does it take to dig deep and decide? And a couple things that happened at the event, you did a reflection on who am I? What do I want? and what do I really want my future to be? And that is so key to then face your fears, because we know that the fear is the key, and that it's, digging deep and taking that next step, which you've done. And yet it's the understanding of what is my journey and what do I really want that'll be the motivating factor to actually take that leap,
Yeah.
take that step. And yeah, so you had the idea, you were ready, and then went, I don't know. Most people go through the same journey. They end up selling their family and friends. They sell them all this, and then they go, so they bought, but who else is going to buy? You went through that process. And all during this time, I remember we were talking. We were already engaged. We had a consult, and we were there was text back and forth. There was some engagement with a few components along the way. And then I was so glad when you came to the event, because I know that becomes a catalyst for so many people in really spending the time away from their business in their life and getting clear with what their future is. And that was a catalyst, a key moment for you in driving forward.
Yeah. And when I went by myself, and I wouldn't have gone any other way. It's I'm not an advocate for divorce, but I'm an advocate for really, really, really supportive spouses. And if you don't have one, it's probably why you're unhappy. And I could not do everything that I have done, um, in I think, quite frankly, in any relationship. And the last 2 years. And I think that event for me, the question that you raise is the hardest one to answer. And I go through this every day. I'm going through it again right now. What do you want? You can have anything you want. What do you want? And that comes up at different places for different reasons at different times. And I'm there again on another issue related to the next level of the business, right? What do you want? And to not be influenced by anybody else for those 3 days and really be focused on me. What do I want? When I hired you, I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. There are most people.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah.
Most.
Don't everyone here, don't tell anyone that you hired me. I keep me a secret. It's absolutely imperative. Thank you.
I've told the world many times since, but
Thank you.
I think that, I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in coaches since I graduated from my MBA. And I would, that money, I mean, first of all, just starting a company is an education you can't buy. Holy moly. I mean, there's just not a price tag you can put on that. But every coach has a different purpose, I think, for me. I mean, time, place, purpose, whatever I needed. But I guess it goes back to not being afraid to ask for help, and so much of business, and you talk about this and taught me this. Wow, it's all in your head. That is where everything happens, is its mindset. And it's hard to believe until you get there. And then you're like, yeah.
Yeah, most people go, no. Just tell me what's the tool I need? What's the system I need? Yeah, let's start here. And part of the reason why, I know that so profoundly, is that was me. I was the young kid, had my first business really young in life, and I was, man, who do I turn to? I'm supposed to know all the answers, and I shunned help. I literally chased it away over the first couple decades of being in business. And I learned, that doesn't work. And you really want to step up. You really want to create the magic that's within you. Grab hold of the resources, ask for help. Then there's so many people around you that will help you in so many different degrees and ways that, but you've got to start asking.
Yeah, huge. So, yeah.
So here we were in, and now we're in December of 2021. And that's when the real conversation of, oh, I've got a pretty good position, a pretty good salary. Do I leave it?
Hmm. Yeah. And the question that somebody had actually asked on a Zoom call with you in one of the group formats prior to that was they said, when do you quit your day job? And, I've had that question asked so many times of me by women. Um, and everybody's scared, right? And it's terrifying until you do it. It's terrifying while you do it. It's still scary, right? But um, you said don't quit your job when you've replaced your income, quit your job when you know how to replace your income. And you referenced the line of 99%'s a bitch, 100%'s a breeze. And you have to go all in. You have to go all in. And that resonates with my mindset so much because of the maximizer mentality that I have in my Gallup strengths. I mean, I am not the person who's like, something's better than nothing today. At least you walked for 20 minutes. Oh, hell no. If I'm going to the gym, we're going for an hour and we're going to lift 3,000 pounds and we're going to sweat our asses off or we're not going at all, right? I'm
Excellent.
not a halfway anything kind of person. And you know that about me.
Yep.
So it was, that was for me like the get it of like, you got to go all in on this. And, when it goes back to people say, how have you done what you've done in the last 2 years? I say, okay, there's a lot of things. Number one is not sleeping and working really hard. But and so going along with that is going all in. But number two was there was no plan B. There's no spouse whose income is going to subsidize this. There's no trust fund. There's no life savings. Like this is it. And that creates a fire that is just ugh, can't put it out, right? And mine will not go out until I feel like I've made it. And that's an
No
elusive.
plan B. No plan B. And so many people, that's if I get a fight along the distance and along the way, that's the fight I get. What do you mean there's no plan? No, no, no. Well, if this doesn't work, I was like, what do you mean if? What's going on? Because as soon as you put it out there, it's going to happen. And that's a big challenge. And we breezed over it and you made it sound so, oh yeah, well, I was afraid. You were deathly afraid
Terrified.
to quit your job. And
Yeah.
we had multiple conversations almost weekly on are you sure? Talk about that phase because I think that is so relevant to so many people because they get, oh yeah, yeah, it's nice. You had a great idea. I've had a great idea. You thought it might be something, yeah, and then you got a little bit concerned, but you did it because that's who you are. I could never do that.
Yeah, it's ugh, it's a tough one. I journaled a lot through that process too. And um I still don't trust myself as much as I wish that I would sometimes. And every time I don't, I regret it. I think not trusting myself on this would have been my biggest regret in my life. But the only reason I trusted myself, you would say, and the only reason I ended up trusting myself was because of you, because you saw what I couldn't. You believed in me and the company that I was building more than I did myself. And I struggle again right now, like 2 years later, doing huge next moves in this company. It's the same thing. Like when you're in the weeds, you're so far down. And even me being number one strategic, like I'm like, just show me where the light's at. It can be 10 years away and I'll see it and I'll figure out how to get there. When you're in your own company, in your own head, it's hard to get above the clouds and see the possibility. And for me to go into somebody else's world, I'm like, it's a no-brainer. Like you've got this. Like just quit your job and go do this. That's you, right? Like you can do that. You're like, no big deal. And it's not that you're going to tell that to everybody. It's a selective of like, no, you do. You do. And I did, but I in a million years had I not had you sort of holding my hand through the process. And it's walking through, and Keith and I talked about this not too long ago, like that walking through that fire, walking through that fear is part of the process. It's a huge piece of it that you don't realize at the time. You don't realize anything that you're doing at the time is that next stepping stone and wherever you're going. And I always go back to it, and I know that I'm not getting a tattoo on my wrist that says it, but it's as close as I could be, which is just trust the process. But it's trust myself, trust God, trust the universe, trust my team. It just trust. And that was my second word of the year, a couple of years ago. And I hold that one close, and it's hard. It's really hard. And there's not an easy answer. You have to go through it. You have to walk the walk. I right now tend to attract a lot of women that want to be happy. They want to be where I'm at in life. They want to start a company. They want to pursue their company full time, like whatever it is. And, they're like, I just can't do it. That's the answer. It's what I always hear. I can't do that. I just don't see how I can do this. And you can't. You just have to do it. And once you go, that's it. There's no, I mean, I'm on, there gets to be a point of no return, right? And that's part of that really hard point that I'm at right now. I got to choose two highways. I'm going down the interstate right now, 120 miles an hour, and I got two exits. Neither one are really exits. They're just like
Right.
next state level, right? There's not an off ramp here, and that's actually
No.
it, right? Like you get so far down the road that I mean, don't drive the tank off the cliff. That's not going to happen. But you have the two storylines, and do you go left or do you go right? And once you pick those, that whichever way that is, it's going to be really difficult down the road to decide that you're going to change lanes later. And so
Yeah.
it's a trust the process moment right now.
It's possible to switch the lanes. The key component, though, is that you definitely take that leap, and there's a certain component of fear in that leap, and you took it. But then there's also people don't recognize there's leap after leap after leap after leap that you end up doing in your process, and that's where trust the process comes in. Is that you've got to keep taking those leaps. There's no just, oh yeah, you know what? I'm going to stay on this cliff for a while. I'm just going to sit here and build my house right here on this cliff. No, you got to keep moving, and that's where the difficult and the greatness of our journey comes in, and the difficult and greatness of entrepreneurship is that you take that leap of faith and you keep doing it anyway. And then you do it again and again and again, knowing that every time you take it, it could go left or could go right, could go up, could go down. Only there's going to be another leap later on. So whatever happens, trust the process.
Well, there's going to be a net or water, right? Like that's what I kind of have learned from you, that there's always a solution. It's not a problem, it's a challenge, right? And it is leap after leap after leap. And the first one, there's different points that are really, really hard. Those are those milestones, right? So quitting the day job is a really big leap. I absolutely love, in fact, Keith is the one who told me to read this book, so I'm sure you have as well. 10x is easier than 2x by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. And what was profound to me, and by the way, anybody who's listening, if you haven't read it, I would highly recommend the Audible version, not the book, because Dan and Benjamin do a little podcast at the end of each chapter. And so if you're short on time, skip the chapter and just listen to the podcast. But what he says, what Dan talks about is that 10x moves are those that you are abandoning 80% of what you know, what you've done, who you've spent time with, whatever it may be, 80% of it to go a different direction, to think differently, right? And he also talks about, this was a big one for me, that people who are very goal oriented and the movers and the shakers, our goalposts are always moving. So you have to actually measure your progress backwards rather than forwards. And that makes sense, but I am extremely futuristic. So I'm like, oh yeah, somebody will come up to me and they'll be like, oh my gosh, congratulations. And I'll be like, on what? Like and it was, I don't know, whatever, an article or an award or something, in the last few weeks that happened. And for me, I'm just like, oh, that's old news. I mean, I don't say that. Of course I say thank you, but I've moved on. Like
Yeah.
I'm conquering the next, event or war or whatever. Like I'm already onto it. And so, but looking back, and he does this in the book, he says, where were your 10x moves? What have you done? And then that helps you understand you can do it again. And you will do it again. You have to do it again, right? So what are those places? And every one of those 10x moves are terrifying. They are always scary in whatever that is. Now, I think people who have led very boring lives, and I think that people who are not happy haven't done those. Haven't done them as often as they should, if they've ever done them at all. And some of them were done not by their choice, right? There was something that happened to them that changed the course of their life. And I never want to be that, right? I want to be in charge, but I'm very aware of it. You talk about you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. Being conscientious about your space and where you are and taking the next steps. And just a few weeks ago, that popped into my head again. I become extremely immersed in the ecosystem sort of in Nebraska of startups, and it's amazing, amazing. Uh, but it's so easy to get comfortable with a new location and stay there. And I don't mean like that can be anything, right? The first time you walk into, a new country club, I don't care what you're going to join, you don't know anybody, right? You walk into a dinner party, you don't know anybody, and now you get comfortable and you stay there. You walk into a new business networking group, you start to meet people, and now it's easy to go to lunch every single week with those people because you know them. What I caught myself on was that I have gotten really comfortable with this group that I have met in the ecosystem, show up every week. I do my stuff. I know everybody. Everybody knows me. And I walked into a room for the first time a few weeks ago of a group of people that I didn't know. It was next level people in the space of founders and startups. And and the moment I walked in, I thought, whew, haven't felt this for a while and I better go back. Right. Like I recognized immediately that
Here,
I'd been
here.
comfortable too long.
It
So
That's huge. That's huge. And it's the doing it different. It's stretching yourself, and you look back. You've done anything for long enough, you're going to get into a complacency mode. You're going to get into a comfort zone that doesn't serve you.
mhm.
And the good and the bad of everything that happened to this world during COVID was that it reshuffled the deck for everybody. And for me, as somebody who observes and trains on this stuff, man, I look at that and reflect on it. It's like, oh man, all the networks got disheveled. That none of them were what they were, and so you had an opportunity to step into all new networks of people as a newbie, and they welcomed you with open arms because everyone had shuffled the deck. And recognizing that it doesn't have to be a world empowering fate of the universe that causes you to do that you can just decide, step into new networks, step into new opportunities, decide to change gears a little bit every step of the way. And when you do, watch the magic that happens.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's leap after leap. It's keep going and push through the fear every time. Reshma Sujani founded Girls Who Code and Moms First US, and she's incredible. And she was on I caught a reel a few weeks ago that she was on, and somebody asked her if she was ever afraid because she's got, 500,000 followers and is a powerhouse and, always in really tough spaces. And she's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? All day, every day, and twice on Sundays. I was like, yes, right. And I took my 14-year-old daughter to Pink, and she took a moment during her concert, and she talked about her own daughter. And they were talking about social media and being kind and how bullied she is. And her mom's like, and their daughter's like, you're bullied on social media? She's like, oh, you have no idea, right? This was Pink. And so, I think that it's recognizing that whenever you're going against the grain, you're doing things different. You're in the wrong lane. Um, you're making bold moves. The entire process is never going to be comfortable. You're never always going to be the most popular person in the room, and you have to be okay with that. And try, and then it goes back to the trust yourself. I mean, time and time again, I'm not your typical founder. Now, I have recently learned the average age of a founder that has a high success rate is 43, which is ironic that was exactly when I started this company. I'm 45 now. But I don't feel like a typical startup founder. I don't look at myself as a 25-year-old, in tech who just graduated. Um, and what I've had to learn is that there's not a textbook for how you start a startup, and it's you have to start making some decisions. Like, are you a small business or are you a startup? Goes back to that question of like, what do you want? All right, and there's a learning process to that. And then you get to the place of like tapping into like, okay, this is the way that everybody says to do this. And then, okay, what I bring to the table is 25 years of business networks and experience and connections. Relationship is my number one. And when you go back to Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy, it's who, not how, right? And really tapping into the who of how to make this happen. And that's been a piece that I've come back to time and time again. It's hard to remember. And it's not that you're not doing the work, you sure as heck are, but it's doing it different, right?
Say the least. Now, and I want to fast forward, and we haven't actually mentioned what success you've had over the last 2 years. So why don't you give us the current status of where you're at this stage in your process now, just over or just about 2 years
Yeah.
in stage.
So we talked about October 2021. I launched. I got 25 people who I know who have bought our product. We end 2021 with 40 subscribers and me turning in notice to leave my day job, believing this is going to work. I left in March of 20.
Which is when you engaged with me fully,
Yep,
and we
exactly.
started working and locking arms together.
Yep. Yep. And I would say, just for reference, like I did the work with you really hard for a solid 12 months
Yeah.
during this process. And so if you look at, as you took a course, you invested in education. That was, different coaches have different timelines, and your program certainly goes on and on and on for years, and you get what you need when you need it. But I needed you for 12 months really intensely, and that's what served me the best. And so so I leave my full-time job now in March of 2022. Entry Envy is getting really busy at this point. In June of 2022, we won the Best New Subscription of the Year award from the Subscription Trade Association. And we started doing a lot more collaborations. By the fall, a year later, last fall, again, this goes back to this very beginning of this, like, time is so weird in the startup world and how much we work. But I was ready for that next level. I was started to look again. I was like, okay, I got to learn. I know what I've got now. We had a couple hundred subscribers at this point, so we'd had a tremendous amount of growth in a short amount of time. And I knew that I needed to get more resources. And so that was when I made the decision of sort of what path am I going down at that point. Started to get very well connected in the startup world. Every big city has an ecosystem of startups, but they're kind of hard to get into, to be honest with you, because it's a really small subset of the population that has a product that has a $1 billion plus potential addressable market. And there's a fewer subset that has the guts to take the risks and do the work that it's going to be required to get on that highway. Right. And so in October, I had a trajectory changing conversation with one of the coaches through an accelerator program through Generator is based out of Milwaukee. They focus on the flyover states and cities, if you will, for talent that is outside of Silicon Valley and sort of the big cities.
Right.
And so they have a program in Nebraska that's called N Motion. And I had a conversation with one of those coaches, and it was the first time since talking to you the prior year that I felt heard, that I was like, okay, somebody gets where I'm at. I'm not crazy, right? Because you have lots and lots and lots of conversations and people are just looking at you. I mean, they may or may not, but it's like you could just feel it's four eyes. We're not on the same planet here, move on next. And you just kind of have to keep having those. And so I finally connected with this named Mason Cook, great guy. And I'm like, oh, okay, I think I found my next spot. And so highly competitive to get into. They talk to 2,500 founders. There's 500 applications. You go through this process. And I was chosen as one of 6 Nebraska companies to participate in this accelerator program. That was an intense program of 14 weeks. They invested $100,000 into our company and then paid us to go through this training program, which was incredible. The point of that program is they only put you in the program if you are a venture backable company, from the capital perspective, and then, have the founder ability, can do the work, all of these
Right.
pieces, but the idea is they're teaching you how to perfect your pitch and your executive summary and go raise money. Go raise money, because that's how everybody makes money at the end of the game on venture capital companies. And so it was an incredible experience, grew so much. And then kind of got pushed out of the nest at the beginning of August and said, okay, go fly, go do this. I should mention that in June, so that program, the conversation, and I think this is important too, like, everything takes time and I don't have a lot of patience for it, but that conversation that really sort of has completely changed where I am 12 months later started 12 months ago. That conversation starts, I get accepted into the program. I had to apply in January of 2023. I got accepted into the program in April of 2023. It started in May. And I graduated at the beginning of August. And in that time period, I also won a pitch competition for $50,000 through the Subscription Trade Association. Competed, again, highly competitive, hundreds of applicants in front of 2,000 plus people and 4 really badass judges. Chief strategist of Google, Neil Hoyne, and Jesse Puggy, who had a 9-figure exit from his first company and is building another one. The founder of the seventh largest VC in the world, Brian McMahon, Expert Dojo, Nicole Silverstein with Retail Touchpoints, like just amazing people. This was the real deal. This was not any kind of a vanity award. And there were 3 other companies that competed against. And I would say that was a really validating moment for me, that it was like, okay, I've got this. And you have to have these wins to keep going, because this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, hardest thing I've ever done. And that was huge. So, and I would not, in my opinion, have won that had I not been in the N Motion program that was literally training me to create the perfect pitch and the perfect executive summary. So, I got up there and I was like, bam, 5 minutes, here you go. 5 minutes of questions and answers. I've answered questions from really hard people for, lawyers for 18 years. So
Right.
nothing scares me, right? And it was really, really fun. It's super cool. My daughters got to be there to watch me win that award. And, I've given up a lot of time with my kids and sacrificed a ton, totally disrupted their lives 4 years ago when I left their father. And it's hard to explain to your children why you work as hard as you do, why you miss some things that you do, and I think for them, like, to see that, oh, mom's actually really doing something here, this is pretty cool, was huge. And they got to also hold a giant check, which also helps in the world of 12 and 14-year-old girls, that they're like, oh, this is awesome. We actually, all the money it was sponsored by a company out of Chicago called Prayla. They're a Shopify dev shop
Yep.
e-com agency specialized. They're redoing their entire website. It's gonna launch at the beginning of January. It's going to be phenomenal. It's such an honor to work with them. They've worked with huge brands, and so it's another 10x move for us and our company to be able to kind of level up and play at that game. And so it's all of these. So yeah, I mean, so we're raising $500,000 right now for capital.
How much was the company evaluated? So as you went through this first year and you got in front of them, how much was the company evaluated, and why were they giving you the 100,000 in the accelerator program? What did they say the company was worth?
Well, I'm going to go. I have to go back to this story here real quick for you, because what happened was we're going to go back to October a year
I'm
ago.
looking for her to tell you the punchline, and she wants to tell the beginning backstory of the joke.
Sorry, I know you want it, but here's the deal. So you and I had this conversation when in December of 2021 of how much revenue I wanted to make the next year, and this is the power of the mind. And my God, Paul, I'm working on perfecting this manifesting thing, but I tell you, still not getting there. Screwed it up again, but I'll tell you that's another story for another day.
we
But
we that's our next journey, if you will. Over the next, we are going to get that dialed in because it's such a powerful place.
I
Manifestation. We'll touch on that another.
it works every single time.
Yes.
I just don't quite have it perfected yet. So I'm in for that class for sure. So will just say for simplistic purposes, you and I bantered, and I finally wrote down that I was going to generate $750,000 in revenue my first year. And I didn't believe it, right? But you always say it doesn't matter if you believe it, just write it down, right? I'm like, okay, fine. And I was, being grumpy about it. And so a year later, I was feeling really down. I had my head, and I knew I wasn't going to hit that number. I was not going to hit 750,000 in revenue, and I did it. And this is where this whole thing on manifesting, but I was feeling down and sad. And a couple of weeks later, I had a meeting with a guy who is finance guru in the startup world. And it was the first time I'd really kind of shared my numbers. And he's a high D, and he's like, just firing away, what do you want? And I'm just, I'm giving him back, the numbers that he wants. And this was a tough conversation. I'm thinking I don't know how this is going, but I don't think it's going well, And so I give him all the numbers, and he's kind of sitting here, I got to say, he's like, well, I don't know. I'd say your company is probably around 1.3, 1.5 million. And I'm like, what? This is a very different number from my bank account balance, right?
Right.
But what I had done in that year was created a company that was worth over $1 million, and, exceeded, almost doubled what my number that I wrote down with you was. So that's where we got more specific about, okay, we need access to that being in cash. And how does that work? But you've reinvested the money back into the business over and over and over again. So
I want everyone to get this is a little over just about 1 year from when you started the company. When you had a conversation with someone who was really good at analyzing these numbers, and they're like, yeah, it's 1.3 million, 1.4 million is the valuation of your company. And you're feeling, and this is really key for most people that are out there, because they all have those chit chat in their head and those quiet moments at home when they're beating themselves up. And you were in the process of having those conversations with yourself when this guy comes in your mind out of the blue with a number that's totally insane. And it's the first time that you reflected on, oh, wow, I really have created something here.
Mm-hmm.
That is worthy of the time and energy I put into it.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because as an entrepreneur, I mean, I, haven't taken a paycheck in 2 years, right? Nobody's giving me money. And, I ran into one of my friend's moms the other day at the grocery store. Bless her heart. She's like, oh my gosh, you're doing this full time now. I said, yes. And she's like, Oh, that's so good for you and your daughters. That must be so nice to have work-life balance. And I literally started laughing. I couldn't help myself. I thought, oh my God, no, there is no such thing right now. It is one life, and I work all the time. I work harder than I ever have, and I love every single minute of it. But it did help validate, Paul, when I consistently am working, you know, every night, 18, 19, 20, 21 hour days, right? Over and over and over again, and have done this for well over 3 years now, from the time that I started remodeling this house. And then I
Right,
actually started another company while I was remodeling the house, related to the women in the trades piece that I've
right.
paused, and then I started this one. And so, I mean, no, it's been perpetual. And so to have somebody validate, like, apparently the lack of sleep that I've had and the no paychecks is resulting in something is pretty cool. I said to one of my other good friends, moms, I was on the phone with her about a month ago, and I said, Jeannie, I've always been a little bit humble about, being well paid for the positions that I've had. I've always been in executive level, leadership positions, and done very well. And I said, when I sell this company someday, whatever the amount is, I earned every penny of it. I know that. I know that. It is
No,
so hard.
and you're also building, and it's, our focus creates our intent, and creates our perception.
Yeah.
And so focusing in on, oh, I've worked so hard, I've done so much, and yet the magnitude that it has in your purpose, and getting back to what I read in your bio, when and what I know to be true for you, is with all our conversations, that showing young women
Huge.
what life could be is what you've done, not just, in a general sense, but for your daughters to know. And for, if you could pick a life for them, are you saying that you wouldn't want them to go down the journey that you just went on the last 2 years?
Oh my gosh, no. I mean, I want them to do whatever they want to do. I'm not anti higher education. I'm just about choices. I'm just about
Yes.
providing, be happy. It goes back to, like, and I just look at so many women. Like, it's unbelievable the number of women to me between the ages of 35 and 50 that I know that are unhappy.
Wait, and I want you to pause. What creates happiness? What has created the happiness for you?
Living life for you and not everybody else. Like, it goes back to, like, you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. The analogy that I give moms is, I'm like, listen, when you are in your house and you get sick, your kids are little and you get sick for 3 days, the house, it goes freaking goes hell in handbasket. Like, I mean, everybody lived, but laundry definitely didn't get done. The house looks like hell, right? I mean, you don't even want to go down that path. Every mom knows what I'm talking about, right? And we go through life, and this is what you're holding it all together. You're the glue. You're the mom, the daughter, the wife, the grandma, the friend, the employee, the everything. And women lose themselves through that process. They just do. And they've all of a sudden lived their life for everyone else except for them. And there has just never been the statement more true that you have to put your own oxygen mask on first. And if you are sick on the couch for 3 days, which is essentially what ends up happening
For
your
the
entire
whole life,
life, you're like sick on the couch, but you're not recognizing it.
right?
No one else is going to be happy around you. And when you're happy and you're thriving, everyone else that you want in your life wants to be around you, and wants to emulate that. They love the energy. I draw people out all the time, like, oh my God, you're just so amazing. Your energy is so
But
great.
the energy comes from a purposeful intent.
Yeah.
And that's what people hear. The first line of the message is, oh, well, do for yourself. And then they just create themselves to be selfish and focused in on, oh, I'm going to go lay on the beach all day or lay by the pool, and that's what I do. It's the purposeful intent and the working hard to create a purpose and living a purpose every day
Yeah.
creates and has created that momentum for you that is a shining star for your daughters and every other woman out there.
Yeah, it's the reason I get up every day. It's the reason it's not about me, right? It's about so it is about me having my own oxygen mask on and taking care of myself and being happy. But I'm doing it for everyone else. I'm doing it for hundreds of thousands of women and young people in general right now who we've got some societal expectations of misalignment about what purpose looks like. And one of my people say, well, you got to go to college to grow up. Really? Well, if you're not living with your parents when you're 18 and you're paying your own bills, I promise you're going to grow up. It's I don't know. It's a lot of things. That's a different podcast for a different day. But
You're here.
that's the goal. That's what I'm living for. And when I know that it's enough, because this question has been asked to me and I've had to do a lot of self-reflection, like when is it enough? It's when I know I have positively impacted hundreds of thousands of women to be able to do what they want to do happily, that they're happy.
Here, here. Here, here. Yeah, I had someone ask me recently, when are you going to slow down? And you know my answer. Yeah, it's not happening anytime soon because I don't know how to live a life that is less than.
Yeah.
And for me, the slowing down is that less than, is that the purposeful intent. And it's not about, it's about affecting the millions that I can. And every day that I'm alive, I can impact the world. And not to play at that level is to me sacrilegious.
So here's my question for you today. So Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan talk about doing less to get more, right? There's a lot of conversations, there's a lot of books
Yes.
about it, right? So how do you not live less, not live a lesser life, right? And balance that doing less to get more, because that's the concept right now that I can't quite get through my head.
And so now that it goes down to defining what you mean by less.
Right.
Is it actually less creation? Or is it just less, like I'm not digging ditches anymore?
Right.
Like I don't need to write my own copy. I've got a team of people to do that. I don't have to. So there's things I do a lot less. I joke, I have forgotten more than some people will ever know because I don't do it every day anymore. So that's less to get more. So know how to delegate, know how to build a team, know how to empower other people, know how to create collaboration, and to focus in on the highest and best use of your talents.
Yeah.
But does it mean actually slowing down? And so that's, for me, and I'll tell you, and for this question, I was just had a trip planned. I'm hanging out with my wife, with my daughter, and it was 4 or 5 days where we were just going to do nothing. And we had no plans. And then right before we left, there was a call for me to spend 2 days in another city to create magic for 400 people. Do I do that? Do I step away? Now, my wife was excited because I was actually leaving her for 2 days, and then she got to play with my daughter an extra 2 days. We just extended our time, and then everybody was happy. And my team, the most amazing thing, my team's first reaction to when I said, well, should I take this opportunity? Should I do this? They're like, we know you. Of course you're going to do this, right? And that is what I mean by what the slowing down. I mean, no. I'm just going to do, have the 5 days of doing nothing. We just extended our trip an extra couple of days. My wife and daughter got to play for an extra couple of days. Why? Flew another town over and said, all right, let me go and play somewhere else for 2 days and then come back. And I just took a plane ride over, came back. It was no big deal. And we created magic. We created a whole nother, and it was a place that I hadn't played before. It was one of the stretches for me because I got to play in an arena of all Spanish speaking people. I was one of the few people that spoke English. in the room, and that was fun. And what a great room, what a great experience, and that's what I mean. Over the last month, I've created and we're launching Whole Nother Story, a couple new companies. This is just what we do.
I know. I love it.
And
Okay.
so for most people, they go, ooh, that's a lot. Only once you're moving and you recognize that there is so much more within you, I can't imagine not sharing it with the world before I go.
Well, thank you for that because I've learned so much, Paul. Thank you. Truly. It's been a really fun journey, and I've said it over and over and over again. I never would have taken the leap. I never would have started it. I never would have gone down this path without your support and belief in me from day one. And it means the world. And I cannot wait to see where the rest of the story unfolds, right? Like get up, dress up, show up. This is only the beginning.
This is only the beginning, and what a great close for our podcast and everything that we're doing together. But it's certainly not a goodbye. This is only the beginning for Entry Envy and for everything. And I do believe there's more ventures within you that are, and I know we've talked about some of the things that are the next level for you. And so excited to see. And for everyone that listens to this podcast, that watches this, watch for Jennifer and the shining star that you are, and where you're going to go. It's a glorious journey, and this is truly only the beginning. You've barely scratched the surface of getting past the camp at the bottom of the mountain. The mountain's still in front of you, even though you've already created such success.
Thank you.
God bless. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing just the pieces of your story. And there's so much more for everybody here that wants to take a look at her amazing creations. Go to entryenvy.com. Just amazing, not only an amazing product, and we didn't touch on it, but man, oh man, your ability to create an experience. If anyone's ever, opened a box from, so many of the top level companies in the world, well, Entry Envy will give you that experience as well. And receiving it every month and the experience that you give people is well worth the price of admission. And so thank you for doing all that you do every day.
Thanks, Paul.
Great stuff. For all of you that are here, thank you for sharing. Thank you for hanging out and enjoying this experience with Jennifer and I. Thank you for sharing our podcast. This is Mavericks Do It Different podcast. Absolutely continue to like and subscribe and share it with everybody, because we've got a message out there that you can do so much more than you are. You can move from what's within you and bring it to the surface and share it with the world in the greatest of ways, and we can all enjoy a better world because of it. Thank you so much for being here, Jennifer. Absolute pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Take care, everyone. Till next time.